Obviously, we are going to continue our conversation about what's happening in LA and around the country, protests, some of them becoming violent. The admission now finally by some people that were saying there is no violence, that there is violence, but they're blaming it on President Trump. All of these things that are happening. The conversation, what's good about this is the longer it goes on, because it's not a good thing. I would say that maybe the silver lining of all this, the longer it goes on and the less the sensationalism of this happens, the more conversation we can have about what's actually happening and what needs to be done. We're not always going to agree, but it's like that when you have that fight with your significant other, when things get heated and you're arguing and you're not listening and you're both just venting, but it gets to a point where either you forget what you were arguing about or you decide, you know what, it's time, let's just hang on a minute. Let me say this. And you may not end up agreeing, but at least you've calmed down enough to get to your next point. So hopefully that's the direction we're going. At 9 o'clock, it's going to be a fascinating conversation. There is a curriculum being adopted in the Scottsdale Unified School District in AP classes, and it is getting huge pushback from a bunch of parents. No stranger to controversy, Scottsdale Unified School District has ginned up quite a bit of controversy in the last few years, going back to the COVID days and doxing of parents by the former school board president's father, and it was just a nightmare. Well, there are a lot of residents in Scottsdale that are saying there are very biased curriculum happening in some of these classes. Some of it has to do with LGBTQ plus curriculum. Others have to do with Black Lives Matter protests. And the view and the way that it's being taught is jaded. And we all know that can happen. So at 9 o'clock, we're going to speak to the superintendent of public schools. And one of the things I will say is it's fascinating to me that when you look out in the West Valley, the Peoria School District has adopted a curriculum, but they took the DEI stuff out. And so it never should be about your opinion. It should be about the way facts are presented and letting people figure them out for themselves. And this is something I'm very passionate about because I've seen it. And I think if you've ever been invested or involved, you've seen it too. Anybody that denies that this happens has not been deeply involved. If you think it's a conspiracy thing, it is not a conspiracy thing. If a teacher walked into a classroom and they were pro-Israel, if they were pro-Trump, if they were MAGA, they would be shouted down and protested out of the classroom. So the opposite side of that coin is also true. You should not be pro-Hamas or it's not even pro-Palestinian. I'm not saying those specific things are happening. My point is, if you are genuinely trying to be an educator, then your job is to teach people to read and to write and to teach them to be critical thinkers. That's the whole thing with young people. The brilliance of a young person is the open mind. And they're going to approach very serious topics from a younger person's point of view with lack of experience and wisdom. But that doesn't mean that they're not concerned. I know I'm going to wait till let me do this now, because when we do talk about it at the top of the hour, I want to give the superintendent the floor. But let me just say this. I was privileged years ago. I was asked a number of times to go and speak to the social studies department, students in the social studies program. It was an assembly out at Red Mountain High School in the East Valley. They were very kind to have me come out. And it was a nervous thing for some people because of what I do, that I was going to walk in there with these right-wing opinions, and that was never my goal, because I was a privilege to be with young people. I used to coach sports, high school sports. I miss it terribly. And what was great about the conversations was I didn't go up in there and give a speech. I let the kids talk. I let them ask questions. I answered questions, and there was a conversation we were having with kids, and one of the students, a really smart young woman actually, said, I disagree with you, but I don't know why. And I thought that was really courageous. That was brave of her to admit she didn't know why. And I told her, I said, that's why you need to know your argument so well, and you've got to know why. I said, I have a severe advantage. I'm much older than you. I've lived a lot longer than you. I've been espousing my opinions for years. It's what I do for a living. So, we didn't even talk about what the topic was anymore. I just said to her, being an apologist, learning apologetics of any subject you're passionate about, and then knowing what the other side believes makes you better at your argument. those conversations with young people, let them figure it out. Didn't matter to me that they were opposing me on climate change and they didn't agree with me on abortion. We didn't even talk about those topics. But these kids were as concerned about terrorism at the time and concerned about things as any adult is. They were just seeing it as from a 16-year-old's perspective. It's a privilege to be in a classroom with those kids and be able to shape their future. And if you go in there with an agenda, if you go in there with a slant, shame on you. Shame on you. And so that's what this is about. Whether you agree with it or not, that's what it's about in the Scottsdale Unified School District. And I want you to know this. In the interest of fairness, reaching out to the Scottsdale Unified School District, we're going to invite the people that are proponents of this curriculum to explain why they believe it's the right thing to do, because I want both sides. And
I have
I'll be
an
fair.
update on that.
Okay, let's hear it.
I actually got Dr. Scott Menzel, the Scottsdale Unified School District Superintendent, in studio tomorrow.
Nice. What time?
8:30 a.m.
That's perfect. That'll be nice. We'll spend some time with him and get their perspective. See, that's what a discussion should be.
Right. I just got word, too, so
Awesome.
This is real radio happening.
All right, perfect.
So,
Look at that.
cool.
Breaking news.
I know. Look at me doing my job.
We need like the Law and Order doink doink or the breaking. We need our own breaking news sounder or something.
I'm going to look into it.
Yeah. We can't steal one, though. We got to have our own.
To get our own.
You know?
It has to be unique.
Yeah. Just get someone saying breaking news.
Oh, God.
Yes.
That's the kind of news
That's what we
need here.
Oh, you just hit do it. Find that. You've got to be able to find that somewhere.
Oh, no.
And anytime you need to jump in with breaking news,
I just put it on. Fun.
That's great stuff.
That sounds great. Yeah.
All right. So one of the things before we move forward with anything else, if you didn't know, there was a person arrested. Tyler, is it Hitt, I think, or I don't know, Hitte. A 23-year-old young woman was arrested for the aggravated assault on a Peoria police officer. If you're not familiar with this story, there was a warrant being served, a search warrant being served on a drug case in Peoria, and Peoria police were being supportive of I believe it was DEA, crowd control, and or closed off an area to enforce and to enact this search warrant. And so a bunch of protesters assumed, because it was a federal thing, that this was immigration, so they went there to protest. Well, the protest got out of hand by a few people, not a lot, but a few people showed up, and this is the difference. These are what the infiltrators do. Here's how it works. People show up to genuinely protest. Once again, I don't agree with the premise of their protest, but they show up to make their voices heard and show their displeasure with these enforcements. They were wrong, but they showed up because of it. Then these other three or whatever it was show up, outsiders. They show up, their masks over their faces, and they try to take the police tape down, the crime scene tape, and they try to wrap it around this cop's neck. Well, it turns out, just so you know the kind of people you're dealing with, I don't believe they were part of the original group of protesters that are genuine protesters. Again, I don't agree with why they're protesting, but there are people that are taking to the streets and saying, we think this is wrong, and they genuinely just want their voices heard. This person that's been arrested was one of the people that was arrested for aggravated assault on the campus of Arizona State University as part of the BDS group and the pro-Hamas protests, where the arrests and the criminal trespassing charges were the charges against this very same person. This is a professional protester. Been arrested 2 different times. Now, that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with. And so we need to make sure that they are weeded out. At least I believe they should be.
Thanks for watching The Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.